Hi, I'm Damien and I manage the Assessment and Client Services team in the Victorian Government's Skilled and Business Migration Program. We have now opened our 2022-23 Skilled Migration Program and you can submit a registration of interest through our Live in Melbourne website. If you submitted a registration of interest or ROI during last year's program, the 21-22 program, you will need to submit a new ROI to apply for this year's program. Once you have submitted your ROI through the Live in Melbourne website, you will then need to wait for invitation. An ROI is not an application for nomination, and you must wait until your ROI is invited. We do evaluate all the ROIs submitted to us and invite the highest skilled applicants to apply for Victorian nomination. The program is highly competitive and therefore we cannot invite everyone. We do encourage you to regularly visit our program review page for factual information about the applicants we have selected, rather than relying on other information that may be circulating on social media. This information on social media may be incorrect, may be out of date, or may be being used for advertising or marketing purposes. You can submit an ROI at any time until May 2023. If your ROI is not invited, it will remain under consideration for the rest of the program. This year, we have shortened the ROI form. When we receive your ROI, we combine it with the information you have provided in your Skill Select EOI. Therefore, we don't need to ask you the same question more than once. This short video shows you the steps involved to submit an ROI.
The new registration of interest is shorter because Live in Melbourne now pulls most of your visa information from your expression of interest with the Australian Government's Department of Home Affairs. Once you have logged in or created an account in the Live in Melbourne portal, click on the Apply tab. All skilled applicants must complete a registration of interest prior to an application. Select Apply on Registration of Interest for Victorian nomination. Check that all your details are correct and up to date, and then click Continue. You'll be asked whether you are currently living in Australia. Then enter your Skill Select EOI number provided to you by the Australian Government's Department of Home Affairs. Choose the visa you'd like to be nominated for. Then click Next. If you're living in Australia, you'll be asked to input an estimate of your annual earnings. If you're working full-time, input your yearly earnings before tax, excluding your mandatory superannuation contribution. If you are part-time or casual, you'll need to convert your earnings to a yearly full-time equivalent. Visit the Live in Melbourne registration of interest page for more information on inputting your earnings. If you are not working, enter 0. Your registration of interest will be assessed based on other factors in your Skill Select EOI. Enter your employer's postcode. Select yes or no for do you have a spouse or de facto partner included in your visa application. Select how many points you have claimed in your EOI for your spouse or de facto partner. Then click Next. Check what you have input and then click Submit. You'll be asked to provide feedback on your Live in Melbourne experience. Once submitted, a message will be shown explaining that your ROI was successfully submitted for consideration.
The main change this year is the inclusion of annual earnings from skilled employment in Victoria. If you are living in Victoria, the form will give you the option to estimate your annual earnings from skilled employment in Victoria. If you are not currently working or you're working in employment that is not eligible, you can leave this blank or put in 0. Skilled employment is employment in any role that is on the Australian and New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupations, or ANSCO, at skill levels 1, 2 or 3. We do have more information available on our dedicated annual earnings estimation guide on our Live in Melbourne website, including a calculator for you to estimate your annual earnings. I do encourage you to use that calculator and use the figure provided by the calculator in your registration of interest. If you are invited and you have claimed annual earnings, you will be required to provide evidence of your annual earnings in the nomination application. As evidence of your annual earnings, you will need to provide in your application your contract of employment, a position description, your most recent 4 weeks of pay slips, and most recent superannuation statement showing contributions from your employer. Annual earnings are only one factor that we consider in ranking registrations of interest. When we invite ROIs, we also consider characteristics such as your age, your English language level, your years of experience in your nominated occupation, your education and your occupation skill level, and your partner's skill, if applicable. We don't ask for most of this information in the ROI as you have already provided it via the Skill Select EOI. Compared to our 21-22 program, you no longer need to have STEM skills and work in a target sector. To be eligible for Subclass 190 nomination, you must meet the following requirements. You must have had your registration of interest invited by us. You must be less than 45 years of age, have competent English, have a valid skills assessment, score at least 65 points on the Department of Home Affairs points test, and either live in Victoria or be offshore. If you are onshore in Victoria, you must provide evidence that you are living in Victoria at the time of submitting your nomination application. If you are in Australia but not living in Victoria, you are not eligible for Victorian nomination. This is if you're living in another state or territory in Australia. You will be required to move to Victoria before you are eligible for Victorian nomination, and there is no minimum time for you to have lived in Victoria to be eligible for nomination. If you're living offshore or outside of Australia, overseas, all applicants are eligible in each of their eligible occupations, and you can submit a registration of interest through our Live in Melbourne website. You must commit to living in Victoria, and you can't be nominated or have an application with another state or territory. For the Subclass 491 program, our skilled work regional visa, compared again to last year, the 21-22 program, you no longer need to have STEM skills and work in a target sector. To be eligible for Subclass 491 nomination, you must meet the following requirements. You must have your registration of interest invited by us. You must be less than 45 years of age, have competent English, have a valid skills assessment, and score at least 65 points on the Department of Home Affairs points test. If you are onshore, you must provide evidence in your nomination application that you are currently living and working in regional Victoria. You must be working in a role that is skilled. Skilled employment is any role that is classified on the ANSCO at skill levels 1, 2, or 3, and the role does not have to be related to your nominated occupation, but it must be skilled. You will not be eligible for nomination if you apply as an onshore applicant living in another state or territory other than Victoria. If you are living offshore or you're overseas, you must have a valid skills assessment for an eligible occupation. We will be prioritising health workers of our offshore 491 applicants, but we do encourage all other occupations to submit a registration of interest. And finally, the nomination and visa application process. So all forms required through the Victorian visa nomination process are now digital. The visa application process comprises of 4 steps. Step 1, you need to submit an expression of interest to the Australian Government through the Department of Home Affairs using Skill Select. Using the EOI number that you receive from Skill Select at step 2, you will then need to submit a registration of interest for Victorian nomination via the Live in Melbourne portal. Step 3, if you are invited, you will submit a nomination application with us, again via the Live in Melbourne portal. And then step 4, if your nomination application is successful, you will then submit a visa application for your selected visa with the Australian Government via the Department of Home Affairs. Some important things to remember, after you are invited by us at step 2, you will have 14 days to submit your nomination application with us after receiving the email. For ROIs, we also consider other factors such as your age, your years of experience, your English language level, your education and occupation skill level, and your partner's skill level, if applicable, when we invite ROIs. Great. If you need any more information about our program or would like to get in contact with us, please visit our Live in Melbourne website. Thank you.
Authorised by Victorian Government, 1 Treasury Place, Melbourne.